I only have 5 minutes, so you have to sit down now. I want to thank everybody that organized this conference. And I want to thank God and Christ and the Holy Spirit, who also organized this conference. I want to thank my husband and all of the disciples that have helped the needy. Bob Gempel is with God now. God chose this time to call him home. Bob didn't suffer. His passing was quick, and we prayed for God's will to be done the minute before he went into a coma. Douglas Arthur, our son, narrated the video that you just saw. And I asked him this morning what I should share with all of you. He said, "Tell of the miracles that God has done through the lives of the disciples." On the way to San Diego, I read 2 books in the Bible. One was the book of Ezra, and the other was the book of James. Simply said in James 1:26 and 7, those who consider themselves religious and yet do not keep a tight rein on their tongues deceive themselves, and their religion is worthless. It also says, religion that God our Father accepts is pure and faultless. It is to look after the orphans and the widows in their distress and keep oneself from being polluted by the world. I believe that when we help the poor and really read the Bible, that we become grateful disciples of Jesus. And it's necessary for us as disciples to do this. James 1:2-4 says, I must face even the trial of building my future without my husband, and I need to do it with joy. My faith is being tested. I'm convinced that my faith needed to be tested, and that because of your prayers, I will pass that test. Now persevere and be more mature and more complete. We all have to face the trials of this life. That's how God makes us more mature and complete. One personal story about Hope Worldwide and its beginning. When we were asked to start, the 2 of us and 1 administrator, to build a work that would go around the world, my husband took a deep breath and he said, "That's a big job." And I kind of quietly sat back and said, "I don't know that I want to do this job." I was in my comfort zone, helping women to grow in their faith. And I hadn't read the book of Isaiah from beginning to end, and I hadn't practiced my faith enough. About 3 months after we were given this charge, my husband took me aside and he said, "We need to talk." And he told me that if I didn't help him to think about how to do this job, it would be very difficult for him to do it, and that I had to change. When I decided to change, God began to work. And he had already worked through my husband, but he started doing the miracles that you saw in that video. Starting the Village of Hope in India was one of the greatest blessings of our life. And we saw about 18 months ago what disciples can do when they turn themselves over to God. And that village of 3,000 at the time we started is now 5,000. When we started, none of the children went to school because they didn't have 50 cents to buy a uniform. Now, they're graduating from college because God used a non-Christian to build a school inside the Village of Hope so that the people, it was a technical school, and the people from the community have been drawn into the Village of Hope. And so literally the walls of culture have been broken down. All the people are working, they all have jobs, the kids have been educated, and they've forgotten 25 years ago. But it's such a victory for God when the disciples really put their hearts behind the work. And the Cambodia work, there's now 2 hospitals and a clinic, and the work is all self-sustaining. And I haven't talked about Africa or China, and I just asked Dave Malutnak, how many children were actually adopted? Because I remember counting 500 from China. There's a reference to 400 children adopted. He says he thinks it was 1,600 children that found homes. That's what you have done. I love you, and thank you, and continue to make miracles with your life. Thank you.
Pat, these flowers are for you. A very small token, but what they mean, it's the beauty that you provided to the orphans, to the widows, to the marginalized, to the lame, the blind, those with leprosy, and countless hundreds of thousands, millions of people that you gave beauty to. And these flowers are just a small token of the beauty that you have given them. And what you see out here is the legacy of you and Bob. Thank you.
Let me hold it. Yeah.